Hi guys, how are you all today morning? Good morning. Today is 29th January 2024. My name is TSV Raghavan and I live in Chennai, Tamil Nadu, India. This is my spiritual vlog on YouTube. Hardan, 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 Haribol, TRSV, Nectar, NECTAR, Nectar. In this particular vlog, in all my previous videos, we have been trying to discuss about the knowledge and information that we have gleaned through the study of spiritual books, scriptures, contemplation on the material universe, and meditation on the spiritual universe. This particular video in this vlog is no exception to that rule. In fact, it is a mere continuation of all that we have been trying to do in all my previous videos. So kindly subscribe to this vlog and press the bell icon so that I may keep reminding you of all my previous, present, and future videos. Let us continue with the topic of discussion for today's video. In the past few videos, we have been trying to study, discuss, and analyze at length a particular term that plays a perennial part in the life and psyche of every human living entity, whether male or female, in a particular lifetime in this material world. This particular term is known as mind. According to Srimad Bhagavad Gita, a segment of the great holy Hindu epic called the Mahabharata, Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, specifically tells his own best friend and cousin Arjuna that this mind is the main instrument that drives the chariot called the human living entity in every lifetime. This mind is as important to the chariot called the human living entity, whether male or female in a particular lifetime, as an engine is to a vehicle or a mechanical machinery, or a chip is to any electronic equipment. In other words, in the absence of a chip, a particular electronic equipment, or in the absence of the engine, a particular vehicle or mechanical machinery, or in the absence of the mind, this chariot called the human living entity becomes redundant and is automatically reduced to scrap value. Well, mind, the subtle element in the psyche of every human living entity, stops working. The mass of tissue called brain embedded in the cranium of the gross body of the same human living entity becomes redundant, as a result of which this gross body is sooner or later dropped to this hard terra firma for the same material world to reprocess and disintegrate it into earth, water, fire, and air, the four natural elements that made up this gross body. This does not mean that the mind, the subtle mind, is also dead. No, it is alive, very much alive, and now it, along with the three subtle bodies of the same living entity and the egos, false, real, and super, goes and gets blended or melted into the space till another opportunity comes for that same living entity to be born again in a gross body in this same material world. This goes on and on in a seemingly infinite, never ending chain of births and deaths of every living human entity in a particular lifetime in this material world, till one day the same living entity decides to go spiritual, gets self realized, and finally attains moksha or liberation from this endless cycle of repeated births and deaths in various lifetimes, in various shapes and sizes in this material world. Thus, life goes on and on for every human living entity in this society in the material world. We must remember that every individual human living entity, whether male or female, is equipped with an individual mind of his or her own. This particular living entity acts according to the vibrations transmitted by his or her individual mind to the mass of tissue called brain in the gross body of that particular living entity. Based on such vibrations, transmissions, and messages from the mind, the brain decides on how the gross body of that particular human living entity, whether male or female, should react at a given situation. In other words, this individual mind indirectly decides on how the gross body of that particular living entity should react in this material world. This has intrigued many a student of spiritualism, contemplation, and meditation to study and analyze the working of every individual mind. Here I would like to inform that of the multitude of society in a lifetime in this material world, 75% belongs to the category of vegetating human living entities who have no purpose in their life and who sincerely believe that this life is just a gift from God and they have come here to enjoy or suffer whatever is thrown to them by this material world. The other 20% multitude of human living entities know that they have a purpose in life which they have to achieve, but alas, they are those unfortunate ones who invariably, inadvertently, or advertently gravitate towards the dark negative forces of this material world and they proceed to lead their own individual life in that particular birth in midst of such dark negative forces. Thus they live, work, enjoy and suffer whatever is thrown to them by the same dark negative forces of this material world. The remaining 5% are the chosen ones. This 5% is the preserve of the elite. It belongs to the category of those fortunate human living entities who not only know their spiritual or material purpose in life, but who also have a positive approach or are attracted towards the positive forces of the same material world. Such people are chosen ones and are few and far between. They may be positively material or positively spiritual or both. But these people usually make their own life in a lifetime a success as far as their own journey in that particular birth is concerned. Great intellectuals, scientists, discoverers, philosophers, thinkers, rishis, maharishis, saints, poets, creative artists, evangelists, and such meditators or holy people or good Samaritans belong to this category alone. Now we are trying to discuss various case histories to authenticate our own analysis of the mind of the working of the mind of every human living entity, regardless of which category he or she belongs. We are intrigued as to how a particular mind works in a particular way and direction so that that particular human living entity tries to and either succeeds or fails in his or her mission to achieve his or her positive or negative goal in a lifetime. In the process of discussing about such characters, we condescended to talk about those 20% unfortunate human living entities who belong to the dark negative forces and the case histories of even those unfortunate human living entities who were forced to sail in two different boats at the same time so that their life became a haywire. It is these individual living entities who belong to what is known as the fringe of the underworld of any particular area in any particular world. They do not belong to the 75% category, nor are they welcome into the 20% category. Yet they are used and exploited by both categories and the lawmen for their own nefarious interests and pursuits, as a result of which these guys are gullible and vulnerable enough to be victimized by the whole world, and ultimately they find to their dismay that they have ended up as an assorted success or failure in a particular lifetime. At present, during the process of discussing about one such case history, we are trying to talk about a character called Ferdinand Bocchia, another called Eddie the Hawk Rupolo, Gallo, and Vito Genovese. So let us continue with that particular story. We all know by now how this particular Ferdinand Bocchia belonged to that unfortunate twilight zone and was exploited by a genuine underworld figure called Vito Genovese. Both Ferdinand Bocchia and Vito Genovese cheated an innocent, gullible, ignorant, and vulnerable but wealthy businessman of his hard earned money through various Ponzi schemes. After they did so, the same Ferdinand Bocchia demanded, demanded his 10% cut in that particular theft from Vito Genovese, who did not want to part with even one penny. Result was that this Ferdinand Bocchia was not only killed by two Muslims called Gallo and Eddie the Hawk Rupolo, but his body was also made to disappear from the fields of New York and New Jersey. However, in this whole process, Eddie the Hawk Rupolo was arrested by the police and given a 20-year sentence in the prison. But this guy was a cut above Ferdinand Bocchia and several cuts below his own boss, Vito Genovese. He and Gallo qualified to become genuine underworld figures, but they lacked the intelligence, foresight, and sanguine courage of guys like Vito Genovese, who was an awesome boss of all characters like Eddie the Hawk Rupolo and Gallo. These people were happy doing bidding from the same Vito Genovese. Nevertheless, this Vito Genovese, to escape confirmed conviction, vanished to his home country of Naples, where he joined forces with an equally unscrupulous dictator called Mussolini. Now let us continue this story. Mussolini was a very hardcore, ruthless, sadistic, ambitious, megalomaniacal, and evil type of dictator. Vito Genovese became friendly with Mussolini. This is how the mind of those who are genuinely from the dark negative forces works. Though Vito Genovese knew how bad Mussolini was, and Mussolini knew how deadly Vito Genovese was, yet They chose to befriend each other because they found that each was helpful to the other in achieving his or her negative aims and purposes. At that time, there was a very nice journalist called Tesca based in New York. New York is, as we know, in the United States of America, to which Vito Genovese originally belonged. Both Tesca and Vito Genovese were as Italian as the dictator Mussolini. However, unlike Vito Genovese and Mussolini, this Tesca was an upright citizen both for Italy as well as United States of America. This guy acted as a conscience keeper for his own country, Italy. He ran a newspaper which he used to start a tirade against Mussolini in Italy. This particular magazine, though published in New York, had a very wide and popular circulation in Italy. Tesca tried to expose this dictator Mussolini through his own articles in that newspaper. This made Mussolini angry no end. He wanted to put an end to this tirade from Tesca. Yonder comes Vito Genovese, a fellow Italian hailing from Italy but brought up in New York, USA. Mussolini approached the same Vito Genovese and ordered or instructed him to do something about this whole matter. Vito Genovese wolfishly agreed. Vito Genovese had a psychopathic accomplice in the underworld of New York. This guy was known as Lillo Carmine Galante. He was an upcoming underworld hitman and contract killer. Vito Genovese ordered Galante to kill Tesca as soon as possible. This Galante agreed to this order. This shows how the mind of a person like Galante works. He was not only ignorant and evil, but this guy lacked the remorse, scruples, and conscience that are the main signs of every upright citizen of a society, whether he or she belongs to the 75% category of vegetative multitude or the 5% category of spiritual and material positively oriented persons. Nevertheless, this Galante one day managed to kill the same upright Tesca in New York for the benefit of Mussolini and as per the orders of his own boss Vito Genovese. We shall continue with this story in my next video. This is all I want to talk about in this particular video. Kindly let me know what you think of my talk on this particular subject. Please give me your own expert views, thoughts, ideas, and opinions so that I may blend everything together for the sake of this society. Before concluding, let me remind you that I am also a published author with Amazon Kindle and paperback. I write on spiritualism, fiction, and assorted subjects. Spiritualism happens to be my favorite subject. Till we meet in my next video, it is good morning from TSV Raghavan.